Hello everybody, Survivor Driver here, riding right beside you for yet another daily commute. And the music today is going to be from an old band called Chicago, and the tune is called Beginnings. I really love it. I love the opening acoustic guitar and the horns. There's tons of horns in this song, and I'm just a big horn fan. I actually played trumpet a little bit in my younger days, and I grew to love it. But let's get into the news right off the bat here for this episode of Relentless News number 9. And this is from Bloomberg, and I have to say that I find Theresa May just a treacherous traitor to the UK. I don't like the woman. As I said, I think she's a traitor. But anyway, this is from Bloomberg, quote, Theresa May bought herself more time to secure a Brexit deal, handing business a reprieve from a catastrophic no-deal departure by offering lawmakers a vote to rule one out. The UK Prime Minister heads into a parliamentary vote on her strategy Wednesday, appearing to have staved off a substantial rebellion by her own ministers. But the cost was a significant climb down. May promised them votes to take a no-deal departure on March 29th off the table and to delay Brexit. The pound soared. The United Kingdom will only leave without a deal on the 29th of March if there is explicit consent in this House for that outcome, May told the House of Commons on Tuesday. She said she'll continue attempts to reach a deal in Brussels so the UK can leave as planned on March 29th. Well, I don't know. This looks to me like Nigel Farage's prediction that they were going to delay Brexit to the point where there was no Brexit may be quite right on Nigel Farage's part. And he also added, when I saw him make this prediction on a number of occasions actually in the EU Parliament and also on, I think it was Good Morning UK or some such show, he said if that was the case, if they tried to get out of leaving the EU, that he would go back into the world of politics to stand up for Brexit. And man, if that's the case, they're going to have a hell of a fight on their hands. Now, sticking with things over on the other side of the Atlantic in Europe, I saw on Dr. Steve Turley's YouTube channel, he had a piece on Angela Merkel, and let's have a look at what he was saying. Quote, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has become what pundits are calling political poison as nationalist populist sentiments surged in Germany. Spiegel Online, which is one of the most widely read German language news websites, has a very, very scathing article on Angela Merkel and the complete collapse of her political leverage when it comes to the upcoming European Parliament elections and also some regional elections. So Angela is having a real tough time of it. And again, this is another person that I don't have a problem with going down, I mean in a political sense, because I don't like this woman either. I think here is another person that is a traitor to her nation. She's a traitor to Germany. And you know, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think from the globalist side of this game that's going on right now, this global political game right now, I really honestly think they are attempting to put a feminine face on the police state. I think that's why you had such a push for Hillary Clinton to win in the States, the sudden rise of Theresa May, Angela Merkel being put in the position of power that she's in. The Democrats, I would suggest, and this is not my suggestion, but I agree with it, that the Democrats in the States are trying to portray themselves as the party of women And I just don't think anybody that's looking at what's going on in the Democrat Party in the States can see anything there other than a police state developing on the Democrat side. They want to control absolutely everything. They want to tell you what you can say, what you can think, what you can feel, really fundamentally who you can be. They want to put borders on every side of your personality, every side of what you can do in your life, and anything that contravenes political correctness is to be punished or controlled. And it just, to me, it looks to me like they are trying to put a feminine face on a police state, as if to say, yeah, it's dictatorial, it's police state-like, but women are doing it this time instead of men. So obviously there's a softer, kinder form of police state. You know, women can be tyrannical as well. Who could forget Imelda Marcos or Winnie Mandela, for example? Now, of course, one of the big stories today is Michael Cohen in congressional hearings laying it on thick regarding Trump. And this is just a fiasco in the world of politics. It's an embarrassment. I've always found politics embarrassing on many levels, but this is an absolute embarrassment. So I'm not going to get into it too much, other than to really just quote Mike Rivero from whatreallyhappened.com when he said, "This is a circus. All we need are more clowns." Okay, so to take our mind off of these political clowns, let's get into this music from Chicago, some old stuff with this great tune called Beginnings. Absolutely love the horns in Chicago music. Chicago music always reminds me of when I was a young guy on Vancouver Island, especially during the summertime, hanging out with my two uncles. Always had a riot with those two guys. And Chicago music just, I don't know, Chicago music always seemed to be playing in the background when we used to get together. Now, something I want to touch on here is something I mentioned before. I was going to start getting into and just refamiliarizing myself with it and just watching what's going on a little more frequently, in the precious metal space. And something it's probably wise to keep your eye on that happens almost any time you see any kind of political upheaval of any significance. So if you go back to, for example, when Libya had its problems and Muammar Gaddafi was assassinated, you started to see questions as to what happened with the Libyan gold. I know that it ended up here in Canada for a while. I think certain amounts of it were released back to the so-called Libyan government. I mean, Libya is just an absolute mess now. The Ukraine, when Yanukovych was overthrown, and all kinds of Ukrainian gold went missing. Again, gold came into the limelight. Venezuela here, just with the problems that they're having, asked to repatriate its gold from London. London said no, apparently at the behest of the United States. And I think United States and London work in conjunction when it comes to things like precious metals. And then subsequent to that, you heard that there was a 777 Russian plane apparently arrived in Venezuela to extract 20 tons of gold, and one could assume to have it in safekeeping, because obviously Russia is backing Venezuela. Now, I'm just reading a story here out of Global Research Canada, and there seems to be some shenanigans going on with gold in Syria. And so the headline here is U.S. Army transferring 50 tons of gold from ISIS-Daesh-held areas in Syria and Iraq back to the U.S. Just the article continues. The U.S. Army is transferring tons of gold from Daesh-held areas in Syria to the U.S., multiple reports said. According to a source, now I don't know who that source would be, it's an anonymous source, but according to a source who spoke to the Kurdish Bas news agency, the U.S. forces transferred about 50 tons of gold from areas seized from Daesh terrorists in eastern Syria, Deir el-Zur region, and gave a portion of the remaining gold to the PKK's Syrian offshoot People's Protection Units, YPG. The gold was reportedly transported from the U.S. military base in Kobani. Meanwhile, 40 tons of gold bullion stolen by Daesh terrorists from Iraq's Mosul province was also taken by the U.S. forces. So if this is two separate units of 40 and 50 tons of gold, you're looking at 90 tons of gold here. We're bumping up against 100 tons of gold. That's not small time here. Local sources, the article continues, local sources who spoke to the regime-run SANA news agency claimed that the troops relocated large boxes containing Daesh's gold treasure from al-Dashish region in southern Hasaka. Daesh terrorist leaders nabbed by the U.S. troops reportedly provided information on the whereabouts of the gold, the report said. The claim coincides with a report by the UK-based Syrian Observatory of Human Rights, which said that the US-backed YPG was after 40 tons of gold left behind by the Daesh terrorists in Deir el-Zur. And so this is pretty amazing stuff. Again, you know, gold just always showing up when you have trouble spots on this planet. I mean, even to the extent of Germany just simply asking to repatriate its gold from the New York Fed, from the U.S. Initially they said no, and then they said it would take a year. Now I'm going back about 6 to 7 years ago here, and Germany, I think, ended up getting all of its gold over a long period of time, but not the original gold that they had put in for safekeeping in the United States. Actually, if memory serves, they got a certain amount of it back and said, okay, well, you don't really have to give us the rest back. You can check that, fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what ended up happening. And so anytime there's any kind of an upheaval of any significant nature, the gold situation always comes into it. So just right there off the top of my head, I've mentioned Venezuela, Ukraine, Syria, Iraq, Libya, Germany. There's a half a dozen nations right there, just just off the top of my head, where gold comes to the fore. So again, for people that say gold isn't money and is just an ancient relic, just some yellow rocks, well, this contradicts that, I would say. And while we're on the topic of gold, let's have a look at the spot price for gold in US dollars is $13.1940, down $9. Spot price for silver in US currency is $15.70, down 18 cents. And in Canadian, and again, wherever you live, I encourage you to look at the gold and silver price in your currency. Gold Canadian today is at 1734.62, down $11.83. Silver in Canadian currency is at 20.64, down 24 cents. So just stay on top of what's happening with gold. It is an indicator, and a good one. Thanks for joining me on Survivor Driver. I authorize you to be a complete pervert and fondle that like button on my behalf. Thanks again for joining me, folks, and we'll see you next time.